The startup bug hit me pretty early, and I've been an accidental entrepreneur. Post my master's at London Business School, I started my journey on the Goldman Sachs foreign exchange desk, went to a foreign exchange consulting firm, and a bunch of us started dabbling around with the idea of starting a quant fund. It started as an internalization algorithm. We got carried away. We started putting prop money behind it and see what it does. ICAP came and bought that out, and that was the first startup. Then started two B2C e-commerce ventures, one in the multi-brand luxury space, headquartered out of New York, and operations were set out in New Delhi. We were backed by Axel and Helion Venture Partners, got acquired by Snapdeal. Then started a private label fast fashion business, manufacturing and selling to the domestic market here in India. We were backed by Tiger Global and Axel Partners and got acquired by Myntra, and were the foundation of Roadster and the private label strategy that Myntra started from there. Then started Intelligence Node with my current co-founder. Him and I used to work for a hedge fund back in the UK, and then he was leading BCG's capital markets desk in London while I went the B2C e-commerce way, and then we started this. I think the idea was really simple. We said, why don't we go ahead and democratize core decision-making within retail? I think the parallel that we drew was, look what Bloomberg did to capital markets. Can we recreate that for retail? The trouble was there was no Bloomberg data feed that you could piggyback off. And I think what we've created is pretty much that for retail. We're today the world's largest product retail database. We track north of about 1.2 billion unique SKUs. We cover about 1,900 retail categories, span across more than 200,000 plus unique brands today. And we refresh this entire data asset every single day. And for our largest customer, it's a sub 5-second SLA. So, that's probably off record, but we power the world's most competitive retail ecosystem, Walmart, Amazon, and we do about 100 million unique pricing refreshes for them at a 5-second SLA. We process about $600 billion of retail revenue through the platform today, and some of the largest logos that are out there, from Walmart, Prada, LVMH. We support all of them. And I think the platform's evolved today to do three things, not just pricing. I think pricing's been at the heart of it, but everything's now rolling up to the digital shelf. I think what we believe is share of search and share of retailer search is the only real truth to conversion that is. So I think the whole platform's now evolved to optimizing for your visibility on the marketplace or a multi-brand retailer. I think that's just the context I wanted to give you on who we are, where we're coming from. I think what we've done well in our journey is that we very quickly decided that India was not going to market we will be selling to. I think although we started here, we had the connects with the e-commerce folks, knew pretty much every single B2C investor that was there, went to the largest players in the organized retail and very quickly realized you can't sell enterprise SaaS here, right? They wanted discounts on subscription, delayed payments, all those issues that you don't want, right? So we looked outwards, and today about 97% of our revenue comes from outside India. And I think one thing that we've done really well, and I'm extremely proud of the marketing team, is that in enterprise SaaS, 100% of our sales pipeline is inbound and organic, right? We do absolutely nothing outbound. We actually decline about 90% of the sales leads that kick in. I think about 4 years ago, the threshold used to be that if you can't spend $10,000 annually, we'll not work with you. We increased it to 30,000, 50,000, 60,000. Today we say, if you can't spend $100,000 annually, we can't speak to you. And we started declining, I think on an average about a few thousand leads a month. And then I think after we declined about 10,000 odd, we said, what the hell are we doing, right? This was an aha moment. This wasn't a light bulb coming on. It was a hammer falling on our head. So we figured out, where are they coming from? Let's go and see. No surprise, a lot of them, because this is retail, were on Shopify. And that's the API part of the story that we'll cover, right? So we launched a plug-and-play environment inside Shopify. You never log into our environment. You never talk to sales. You never talk to tech. Completely self-serve. And that blew up. But we had no clue, right? We thought this was a revenue piece for us, right? We go after the SMB market. We had no idea how to price to those folks, right? Is it monthly? Is it usage? Should we lock these guys in, not lock these guys in? And then we figured out that wasn't what we were looking for. The revenue wasn't supposed to come from those guys. Because we were inside the order console, when they put in a pricing rule and assortment rule, we could actually see transactions on their .com as well as marketplaces. So we said, keep them free. These guys helped us build out the market share use case, because we could see transactions from all these customers that were live across categories, across geographies. And we were seeing transactions on Amazon, on Kroger, on Walmart, on Best Buy, and their own .coms as well. So that ended up fueling the digital market share, because there wasn't one that existed. in loosely the retail world, folks that play in the market share would be Nielsen's and IRIs, and that's extrapolation. That's hard extrapolation of survey data, POS plugins. Well, this was actually live transactions that would come in and give you a sense of market share in the now, so you can plan for and act in the now. So I think those are things that we've seen and how we've grown. But I think just state of SaaS and not just SaaS, I think the world itself. I think since the pandemic, it's the highest synchronization of global economies in recession, right? This has never happened before. And we, looking back across the European plague and going back to the two wars, it's just never been like this. And I think that's a reality that we're always faced with. That, not even going into millions of dollars kind of conversations with enterprise folks, $100,000 conversation at a Fortune 100 is rolling up to a CFO. We have never seen this. I think that's what we all have to buckle up for. And what is the cost of acquiring a new customer today? How do you go and land these customers? How do you make it worthwhile to even start a business that's going to focus on enterprises, global enterprises today? I think that's where we realize that if you can't really solve for, I think it was covered beautifully in the previous section, I think across a lot of different things, we called it from day one as founders, true product marketing, right? If you can't get your product explained as simply as you can, if you can't really show the value add in one single slide, then nobody's going to buy. So I think we focused on content, SEO, product marketing, and making sure there was enough out there to be sitting out here in Mumbai and convince Fortune 1, Walmart, Fortune 1, right, to come and buy from us. It had to be solved for the problem. And I think there was a question in here that I think user experiences, right? I think it was probably your question that how do you create that UX, right? I think we have a very simple method for it. Integrate into the workflow of the end user. If you're going to give them something that they take data from, get insights from, whatever recommendations from, and then go implement on their own somewhere else, you're never going to get adopted. Almost never going to get adopted at enterprise level, right? It's not their job to use your product, learn from it, and then make their lives better. They have a job to do, and you have to integrate into that workflow. I think the second lesson that we've really learned on how do you create that adoption is don't get your end users to do the work. So when you go in there, I think one thing we never wanted to do, like legacy price optimization and merge optimization systems, were give me your data, clean up your data. It needs to be in this schema. It needs to be ready for consumption by my machines. No, right? Take that pain away from them. Don't ask them questions, right? Even for search terms. So when we go and optimize, let's say a Walmart, Amazon environment, right? So what are folks searching for? Which keywords should we go look for? What are the volumes behind it? Is it a transactional decision? Should I have a sponsored product as a brand, or should I organically get my listing correct to win the endless aisle? Why should we ask them this question, right? Click-through data, search data are available at other partners. We don't get it, but we said, let's open the ecosystem. Not just integrate outwards, integrate inwards. So we went to Content Square. We said, guys, you have CPC data and conversion data across all keywords and .coms and retailers. Let's bring it in. For Amazon and Walmarts, I think those are publicly available. But what about every other website that is out there? What's a true measure of success, I think, today? And I think there's been a lot of terminology around what you measure in SaaS and enterprise SaaS. And I think I love this from OpenView was, let's start benchmarking ARR to every full-time employee. In my head, that's the only real benchmark, right? If you're really building product, if you want to separate from the services, the consulting, that kind of the world, then if you have 200 people generating $1 million in ARR, I don't think that's a productized business, right? So we've always looked at it from a function that where really is your ARR as a basis of every full-time employee. And I thought this was really interesting. And I think there's another slide that'll kick in. It's what do you de-risk for? What should you de-risk for every funding stage, right? Of course, technical risk, right? If the product doesn't work, then what's the point of doing it, right? The market risk at seed. And I think investors are getting smarter, sharper. Product market fit is not just adoption, it's actually money in the bank. Product market fit would not just be adoption. I think it has to be how much will they pay. I think we've covered the GTM risk and TAM, and I think the stage that we are at, we're raising a growth round, and at this stage, it only becomes about how large is the market, right? And you have to understand the psyche of what kind of investor you're going after, right? You're going after a seed investor or somebody who's on their first fund, second fund. What is the LP returns mean to them. I think if you put yourself into those shoes and go after and say, if you're speaking to an Axel, if you're speaking to a Sequoia, if you're speaking to an NEA, right, for Anderson Horowitz, right, folks that have to probably give back a couple of billion every single year, where is that going to come from, right? It has to be such a large market that even if one of them hits it out of the park and they can give back that LP return with one, they'll take that risk as long as the market is extremely large. I think finally, the culture risk. I think it's a never-ending cycle. I think we'll come a lot to the people side of the story, but we're always trying to de-risk the culture risk. I think this is another one from OpenView on, and I think you covered it in a different way, but it's the user journey is always this, right? They discover a product, they start, activate, convert, scale, but you always have to keep coming back. NRR was covered in depth, and I think we're absolutely anal about that. I think that's the only piece that we measure, we are obsessed about, right? How do you not just retain, right? Keep upselling, and we're a decade-old business, right? For the lifetime of the business, our NRR is 127%. For last year's cohort, it's at 150%. I think given the kind of logos that we're going after, it takes a very long sales cycle and it's very expensive to land them. But once you do, what's the point of getting Fortune 1 if they're not going to stick around for 5, 10, 20 years and at least have a foresight into that at peak scale, they'll give me $100 million standalone. If not, don't go after Fortune 1. Here's the growth cheat code, separate to the growth that you were talking about. This is really embedded in high-level strategy and people. So this is how I see it, right? This is one person's view, but if you're really going to do enterprise SaaS, please look outside India. I think it has to be a global play. I think obsession with customer success, and I think this leads back to NRR as well. If your retention is not at least 3 years, then enterprise SaaS can be very difficult. We've actually got a 21x LTV to CAC on the lifetime of the business. That's because of inbound, right? We barely pay anything to acquire customers. I think ABM and ABM's also changed. I wouldn't even say in this day and age, it's not persona based. I think you're selling to a whole buying committee. If you're not taking the entire buying committee into consideration, there are so many touch points in ABM today that you can't just go and say, here's one champion they'll end up buying. And this is true only for enterprise SaaS, right? From that, I think we do only English and dollar as well. I think it's been very similar. I think we've run into challenges like specifically in Europe. I think selling, they just are really used to and accustomed to being sold to in their language. I think we tried entering China and that was just a nightmare, right? So we very quickly backtracked and we had a reseller on the ground. So it was actually our sales folks getting on the call and the reseller was with them. It just did not work. We faced this challenge in Europe from time to time, but I think we've again have partners. So let's say when we go to France, we have PriceMove sitting out there alongside. Generally, I think the partner in Service Giant Hybrid Impact, I think it's extremely sticky for us because we decided we were not going to do services, consulting, all those elements. So BCG, Accenture, Fractal, we partnered with everyone. We said, not everyone's going to be the Amazons and Walmarts of this world and have 40,000 folks on, Walmart Labs has about 40,000 employees. Amazon has a very similar number, right? A lot of times when you give them true sort of machine learning kind of tools and give them 5-second refreshes and everything else, it's an overkill. Nobody will be able to use it. So in that angle, I think they need handholding, digital transformation, usability. I would name there's I think they do about 100 million ARR SaaS business that recently got a strategic investment from a large consulting firm. I think their average contract value is about $10,000, but the consulting firm was charging about 100K plus for doing 4 quarterly decks on top of that. I think that's what I was going to cover next. But in my head, I think it's solving for that problem more than anything else around it. So I think this is crucial, right? So and for early stage, I think I love to always cover this. It's really who do you call VP or who do you call a CXO, right? If folks can't take 80 to 100% of the function off the founders, then they're not true VPs. They're not true department heads, right? And I think investing in, and I think SaaStar speaks a lot about this, right? getting that VP marketing very early on is almost as important as getting a good tech head. I think marketing is seriously underplayed as a function in tech startups in India specifically, I would say, right? I think we just so deprioritize it. And this is the reverse of what I was saying before this, right? Getting the problem area right. And we founders and sales and marketers build it up in our heads. But we forget that marketing is beyond just the hype. It's a repeatable process of getting the word out. Some very average products have made billions, right? Because of great marketing. I'm not going there, but you just need that engine, right? If the product engine is important, so is the growth engine, right? So investing very early. I think this has been covered extremely well in the previous session, but I think that's how we've seen, at least sort of enterprise marketing go. Everything's about growth marketing, right? You can't segment it and saying this is demand gen, demand capture and lead gen, and none of those things exist in this day and age. If you're not solving for a growth problem, then you're not doing marketing. I think all this has been covered really in detail, and I can shoot it across, but I think this is how we've seen, and content and inbound just plays a massive role in our funnel, and happy to share these elements. I think that's pretty much what I wanted to cover. In our world, I think I want to recap and say, building that repeatable buying process and then resonance with customers, I think it has just built an inbound funnel that we're extremely proud of. And just generally partnering both inward and outward on the API side has been crucial to us. I had retail exposure, but it was all e-commerce, mostly pure play. So they were definitely not Fortune 500s or Fortune 100s, but did a lot of interviewing, lot of going and talking to different types of customers before we started. This wasn't the first gig, right? We had made decent money out of it. We actually bootstrapped for the first 4 years. We self-funded it. So from that angle, I think we spent a lot of time in speaking to a lot of folks, right? I spent time with the CFO of Ralph Lauren, really figured out what their problems was. So the previous business, our chief merchandising officer used to be the previous CMO of Levi's globally, right? So spent time with Sham. I think just made sure that I was out there talking to as many folks and going into their daily workflows and what do they do, right? Is this a problem that I think exists, or really it exists? Will folks put money behind it? Will brands pay? Will retailers pay? Do you have to go through consultants and maybe they have the logos and they'll pay you? So did a lot of work around that. And I don't think there's a shortcut to it. And I think during that journey, I think is when we figured out that mid segments would not work out. SMBs will not work out. They will, but they'll probably go to local shops, local crawling shops, local scraping shops, and just go and get the data. And then the need might be refresh once a quarter, right? They would not need the daily refreshes and the intra-hour, intra-minute kind of refreshes. So I think it's just when we went through, and it's kept evolving. I think it's just kept evolving even today, right? We stumble upon things saying, in this market, right? Like when folks are saying the inflationary environment is not going to go away, the recessionary pressure will remain. Whether statistically and economically we are in recession or not globally, it doesn't matter because the consumers decided we are in recession, right? Spending is down, and that's real recession. So in this environment, we said, where do we focus? And we went and said, we're going to focus on luxury. And like half the team was saying, why? We said, because it's probably the toughest category to even understand an assortment for. If we went to luxury 3-4 years ago, they would say, I don't have competition, my design is the differentiation, right? And then we went and told them that we can get you visual similarity, right? We can leverage computer vision and actually tell Prada how similar is your offering to LVMH's new collection or Chanel's new collection or somebody else. And we convinced them that there was a visual similarity that even luxury shoppers go through. And suddenly we went after the luxury market and worked really well. And there's no competition for us in that category. Then we did the other extreme and said, let's go absolutely hyper razor focused on grocery, because there is only one single category that is recession proof. Folks will always buy food. And the pressure became that there are two kinds of shoppers, right? There are folks that are really loyal to a brand and they'll only buy, let's say, Kroger's private label. And then are folks that are saying, I want to put 7 dinners on the table, right? I'm going to be extremely price conscious and tell me what is the cheapest substitute. I think that's the lens we thought from. And then we could have a really grown-up dialogue with chief merchants at Kroger's and Walmart's and saying, we understand your shopper and we know where they're coming from. So it really depends. I think that's been a change. Even within the Fortune 500, 100, where do you go focus at a certain moment in time? I think you have to keep learning. So I think it's a bit of both. I think you have to figure out what is your team good at, the existing team. And then if you identify a really large market opportunity and there's a gap in the team, then you have to go solve for. And I think for senior hiring, we've made a whole bunch of mistakes, right? But I think we've been very patient. It's not that when we were hiring our head of sales, we found a great person, great credentials, has sold to every single logo that is out there, and let's jump at this person. Whenever we've gotten really excited, we've said, let's pause, let's interview at least 5 more before we make an offer, right? So I think that's been great. So actually, we hired the US CEO of dunnhumby, and he heads our sales now, right? So we hired the CMO of Eversight. They just got acquired by Instacart. Advisory boards is another great area to go, right? They'll probably be able to identify things at a really elevated level in your business. And we've mostly done it through LinkedIn cold reach outs. When the retail top 100 influencers list came out 2020, I reached out to 40 out of the top 100 on LinkedIn. 27 said, yes, we'll join your advisory board. And then that was the problem. We can't get 27 advisors, right? So we had to, pick between those. And one of the folks we reached out to was Lyle Walker. I mean, the only guy I know of that has 40 years in price and promotion, right? He's ex-Walmart, ex-Kroger, ex-IRI, ex-Nielsen, 4 decades to do the same thing. And he said, I was just about to retire, but I love what you guys are doing. Is there an operational role for me? And we're like, where do we fit this guy, right? We were asking him to join the advisory board, potentially come onto the board. So we hired him as overall go-to-market strategy head, right? And that's another thing that we learned. I don't know if it fits for you guys or not. Hiring folks from within the industry rather than a competitor or a larger services player. If someone comes in, let's say I've run, beauty for Estee Lauder. I was the chief merchant. If I come around and sell them and sell the rest of the beauty industry, it's just a whole different trust factor versus a beauty tech person that has sold to every single, that's worked for us, right? So bringing someone like a Lyle Walker, who was ex-Walmart and Kroger, he could talk the merchandiser's language a lot better than any salesperson that I've ever seen. So I think that's worked, and it's something maybe you guys could try. It's a tough one. I'd say that's probably the first fit. If they aren't adaptable and if they can't really come in and be the human first kind of a person, then I don't know how they made it that senior, right? So I think it's finding that humility, it's finding that adaptability. And I think in this day and age, this is a question that the team asks me. So we have this anonymously submit any question every last Friday of the month, and you can submit it and I stand on the floor and answer it. They can be grudges, they can be complaints, they can be business ideas, they can be anything, right? And one thing that keeps coming back is what works better, right? Is it in office or remote, right? And I said remote always works as long as folks are self-starters and they really don't need the alignment and they can communicate within the team, they can communicate across team, and they work and they spend at least 20% of the time on something that is beyond day-to-day execution. If you fit that profile, remote always works, right? So my co-founder and our head of engineering, the 3 folks that started the business, I was shuttling between US and Mumbai. Yasin used to be in the UK and wanted to move over to Mumbai. That didn't happen. His wife got a role in Dubai, moved to Dubai, so he's in Dubai. Our head of engineering is in Sofia, Bulgaria from day one, right? And we made this business work, right? So even today, head of sales is New York, head of marketing is San Francisco, head of strategy is Seattle. Even those guys meet once in 3 to 4 months. Right, so remote works. I think that's what I was trying to pass on to the team, that if you guys could do those 3 things, communicate effortlessly within the team, across teams, and spend 20% beyond execution, we'll shut the office. Right? Even today, we're 2 days from office, right? So we're not forcing folks to come back. And the conversation was like, we might have to move back to 4 because I'm seeing the innovation level drop. And it's only because of that. Otherwise, we'd rather save that expense. I don't know why we started in Mumbai with the real estate prices, but we did. Thank you.